Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell, and this week we wanted to make sure we didn't ruin the R&R moniker, and we're bringing in, as he says, the better Robert on his title. We'll see if that is true over the next 2 hours. Mr. Robert Taylor. Robert, man, this has been a long time coming. How you doing?
I'm doing well as can be. I have a virus. I am sick, but I am hanging out. It's actually a pleasure to be hanging out with you again, man. You a lot of people know this, but not a lot of people know this. You were the one that got me into podcasting in the very first place. So that was a very, very long time ago. I did my own podcast after that. Kind of went away, but yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to talk some sports with you.
Got you into podcasting, and then you got too big for your britches and just refused to do podcasting with me for years. But finally get you back on, and anybody that knows any of our friendship, we've been friends for several years, and I've always joked that Robert Taylor is like a brother of mine because we know what buttons to push on each other and make each other upset. Our arguments on Facebook are legendary. We are no longer allowed on group chats together because other people worry about us, and then we're fine 20 minutes later. But we can definitely get into it. So it's going to be an interesting 2 hours. We will see how things go, especially because with Robert Taylor here and the beginning of Super Wild Card Weekend this week, fit the postseason in the NFL. This is going to be very much a NFL focused show. And Robert Taylor is a diehard Kansas City Chiefs fan, and I like to rib him a bit, even though his team is so much better than my Jets team. And forever. So we'll see how all this goes. We will preview all of the 6 matchups for the wild card weekend, including Robert's Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Miami Dolphins.
Without bias.
With as little bias as Robert Taylor is allowed to reach. That's like Nick Wright not being biased about the Chiefs. Let's just be fair and honest about where things go. Also on today's show, of course, we will look at week 18 and see how we got to these matchups on Super Wild Card Weekend and kind of how that shaped out for the teams that did not make the playoffs. We will look at what we believe will be the NFL awards is it the beginning of February now? With the extra week, it always gets confusing. It used to be the last weekend of January when they did the awards. Now I think it's into February when they finally do their big award show. But we will go through and predict who is going to win, and it may be different, but who we think should win. I know sometimes those are different from who we think will win and who we think should win. So also we'll get into all the coaching firings. There have not been as many as expected, but one was a bit surprising that went down earlier today. We'll get into that, a little baseball. Some local news we'll, of course, hit on because that's what we do here at the R&R Sports Report, even though we keep bringing on people from non-local areas. And if Robert's voice holds out and we have time, we're both wrestling fans. It's Royal Rumble season. So good chance we will just break into some wrestling talk at the end. But we will do everyone a favor and hold that off to the very end of the show. If you're not a wrestling fan, don't worry. Everything is
What's
fine.
wrong with you?
Also that. Robert Hagan will not be on for the next couple of weeks. He has basketball duties right now. Clarkston is it East Valley or West Valley they're hosting today? I saw the deal and now I'm absolutely forgetting. But they are hosting another GSL team as we speak. It is West Valley who they are playing right now. So maybe he will send us off some updates. Yeah, there you go. She'll catch up. Haley's catching up over here. All right, let's get into it. National championship happened in college football. I did not get to watch it as I had Lewis and basketball to get to. I watched the highlights afterwards, heard some people talk about it. But Michigan does get the victory 34-13. Though, to be fair, it was a lot closer than the score suggests. It kind of got away from the Huskies there late in the game. But talking to Robert before we went live on the air, you made a very interesting point that you are now worried about the draft stock and really the NFL career possibilities for Michael Penix Jr. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big college guy myself, but watching the game, I was just Michigan's as close as you can get probably to an NFL style defense, and he struggled.
Hmm.
He really struggled, and I mean, it was very eye opening. I don't think his draft stock's going to take a hit because there's so many QB needy teams out there.
Hmm.
But I do wonder how his game's going to translate. Just watching how that played
Hmm.
out. So
I think that's always the interesting thing, especially with quarterbacks, is some can look so good in college with their style of play. Then they get to the pros and it just doesn't work out. And then sometimes
yeah,
it's the exact opposite, where their college career was fine, but then they get to the pros, whether they are like a Brock Purdy and get drafted extremely late
into
and
the
make a
perfect
run,
system.
or they get undrafted like Dak Prescott and he gets on a bit of a roll. And or is it Tony Romo was the one that was undrafted for Dallas? Sorry.
Yeah,
And then they get a bit on a roll and they have a pretty good career. You really just never know. But I like your point though that Michigan is. I mean, they're not the closest thing to an NFL defense in college. They are an NFL defense just with younger players. But that was the thing that Jim Harbaugh did is he was trying to find a way to beat teams like Ohio State and beat teams like Alabama, and they just did not have the defense to do it. So he went to his brother and asked him for help. And there are NFL defensive coaches on that staff for Michigan. And this was a big test, I think, for Penix Jr. Obviously, he failed this time. Does that mean that his career is over? Of course not. There's going to be bad games for everyone. Even the greats are going to have struggles, whether it's the biggest stage of them all or just a rough game throughout the year. So we will
yeah,
see. But I'm with you as far as his style going into the NFL. And I don't know if it's just a bias on my part, but I don't like his throwing motion. I know a lot of it is because he's left-handed and just generally left-handers have a longer throwing motion than right-handers a lot of the time. So it takes him a lot to get the ball out. But watching him these last couple of games, watching the highlights for this and watching the semifinals, I'm with you. This is a player that I think will get drafted in the first two rounds and depending on what team drafts him, might not get more than 10 starts in the NFL in his career.
yeah. I think it's going to depend on where he lands. Obviously, I mean, he a lot of his footwork, like during the game, a lot of times he was just throwing off the back foot, throwing the fades out there, and he needs to get with a team, with a coach or an offensive coordinator that could just reel in that God gifted talent that natural
Mhm,
talent that he has, and just and harness it and turn it into something NFL ready. Um,
mhm.
I haven't really looked at any of the mock drafts, so I can't really be too sure exactly where he's mocked to go right now. But yeah, it's going to all depend on where he lands.
Yeah, and a lot of those mock drafts are all going to change over
Yeah.
the next couple of months. I know he wasn't even mocked to be in the first round after the semifinals. Some people were saying he moved himself into the top 15 even. That might drop and we will see. Plenty of months to go before we really get into draft season and see where you go. But you nailed
Yeah.
it right on the head. It really depends on if you have a coach like Miami that knows that they have to play to the strengths to their players and they will try to hide the weaknesses of Tua, or you get into a coaching situation like, say, Atlanta, and obviously that coach is gone, where they just refuse to change their coaching style based on the players that they have.
Hmm.
The fact that they had Bijan Robinson all year and it took till the final 2 weeks for them to go, oh, yeah, he's a great pass catcher and we can have him catch passes out of the backfield and get him into open space and he's just going to dominate the secondary.
Yeah.
Oh,
You,
what a shocking
you
turn of
just
events that
you
was.
just look at what like Brian Dayball did for Josh Allen, right? That's kind of what you're looking at here, in a sense.
Mhm.
And I don't think he's nearly as talented as Josh Allen
Right.
was, like in terms of, but that's kind of the same situation you need to be looking at. It's just you need somebody to just get everything and just put it all into one package and put it all together. So it all depends on
Mhm.
where he goes.
And I mean, obviously, with Jim Harbaugh being your head coach, that's why Alabama's been so successful in college football for years, is because Nick Saban's going to make sure his players are NFL ready. So he's then going to get the best prospects to come to his school. Same thing happened with Harbaugh there, but that could change Was this the final game at Michigan for Harbaugh?
Probably. I don't care. I just I'm over it because for some reason in my experiences, Michigan fans tend to be Raiders fans somehow, and I'm already over hearing it. So
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious. I mean, obviously, he was successful as an NFL coach. He had the 49ers on a couple of good runs and made Colin Kaepernick look pretty good in his tenure before things went awry with that ownership. There's several openings going on in the National Football League. Again, a couple less than I think we were initially believing, but it's still early. Black Monday was a bit quieter than we were expecting. But
yeah,
is there an NFL? Is there an
nobody in the
NFL?
AFC West.
Are you afraid of Harbaugh going in there, or do you just not want to deal with Harbaugh? Like deal
No,
with
I mean I
the
just don't want
talk
to
of
deal with it.
Harbaugh.
I'm not afraid. I'm still Chiefs are still going to have the best coach in the division. It's just I just don't want it to be close in a sense.
Mhm.
I like the Chargers charging. I like the Raiders being the Raiders. I like the Broncos doing whatever the hell the Broncos have been doing. It's been fun. So
Yeah, it's definitely been better for the Chiefs, who are one of the best teams in the league to have. They've kind of turned into the garbage division now. It's kind of what New England had in the AFC East. And honestly, it kind of shows because how many off seasons when the Patriots were on their run did Buffalo and Miami and the Jets go out there and try to make all these flashy moves and it never works. And that's all we've seen these last couple of years. The Chargers and Broncos and Raiders all going all in on these flashy moves, and none of them ever work. And then they just make themselves worse while the Chiefs continue to be a strong organization. And now we're to that point where, like a couple of years ago, we could go, okay, well, maybe the Chargers could make a run, or maybe this team might, make it difficult on the Chiefs to win the division. Now it's just you pin in the Chiefs to win the AFC West, and you wonder what seed they're going to get, and then figure out if a team can beat them in the postseason or not.
yeah, I think that's probably why this last Super Bowl win was my favorite. Obviously, there's the emotional part about seeing the previous one
Mm-hmm.
for the first time in my life, but this last one's probably because all off season leading to the last season, it was you know all these teams they went all in. The Chargers, the
Mm-hmm.
Raiders, everybody went all in, and Chiefs just ran away with it. So I think that's why it was my favorite. So it was just fun
Mm-hmm.
watching that happen.
All right, we've already moved on to some NFL talk, so let's
Yep.
just go right into it. Week 18 is in the books. The regular season is in the books, and we're just going to go right into the top story that came out of Week 18. The only story that matters. The streak's over. The monkey is lifted off our backs. The Jets beat the Patriots, man. 15 wins in a row. Gone. It's over. And it might be it for Bill Belichick, too. But it's over. Draft picked be damned. But to be fair, too, that was the most fun game to watch because that we finally got winter weather in the National Football League. I
Yeah.
mean, so many stadiums are now going indoors or the different like retractable roofs and stuff or whatever ridiculousness that's happening with Minnesota Stadium and just up there in Foxborough, just dumping snow, playing normal December football between two of the worst offenses in the last several years.
It was
But
nice to see at least one team go into Foxborough, or at least be in Foxborough and play offense that day
well,
because, whew, man, I'm not one of those subscribers that to the whole Tom Brady was the key to everything. I I I, I think it was a great synergy between Tom Brady and Bill Belichick's defenses that made what the dynasty was, but.
mhm.
God, man, to watch Bill Belichick go out like this, it's really honestly kind of just it's put a smile on my face.
Yeah. Well, until he becomes the new head coach for the Los Angeles Chargers. And that smile
Don't
might be on
care.
a little bit.
Bring all the defensive coaches into the
Right.
division they want.
That
None
is
of them will maximize Herbert or any of their styles.
it honestly is really true. And you can go into a whole different discussion there. I'm a big Robert Saleh fan, the head coach for the New York Jets,
Yeah,
but he's
I
very
like.
defensive minded. And it just that does not work in today's NFL as much. Then you really have to rely on your offensive coordinator. And well, it's Nathaniel Hackett. And Nathaniel Hackett came in as advertised. And without Aaron Rodgers, he is horrible. And you just have to hope that with Aaron Rodgers, hopefully more than 5 plays next year, he will only be mediocre. And Aaron Rodgers can hide all of that. But yeah, it is an offensive coordinator or an offensive coach league at this
It is
point,
100%.
and it really shows. Um, Going through some of these other games, and I'm trying to find some stuff where we'll talk about some of these playoff teams and whether they're coming in hot or not. But how about the New Orleans Saints putting up 48 points against Atlanta? 7 of them kind of caused a little bit of issue with Arthur Smith as Dennis Allen had told his team after an interception went down to the 1 and was kind of hot dogged all the way down to the 1-yard line instead of just scoring then. Dennis Allen told his offense to go ahead and just kneel the football and let's just end the game. And Jameis Winston and the offense went, nah, screw that. And Jamal Williams has been underutilized as our third string running back, and he doesn't have a touchdown all year, even though he led the league in touchdowns last year. So we're still going to line up in victory formation, so the defense will just stand there, and then we'll get Jamal Williams a touchdown.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that ridiculous situation?
The first thing I'm going to say is, so I have some really close friends that are huge Bucks fans. So the way this game went down and the way it ended is perfect because it made Derek Carr look good enough that the Saints are going to continue to stick with him and continue to probably lose the division to the Bucks. So, saying that, I thought it was a great game. The ending, though, I've always been that guy that says, you know what, you don't want him to score, stop him, right? But when you go into victory formation, that's a little different. That's just begging, like the next time the Saints play, right? That's just begging defenders to be like, oh, I don't care. You're in victory formation. I'm going to go after the knees of your quarterback, or I'm going to jump over the pile or something. It was a bad look. If you're going to run the play, run the play.
I'm totally with you. I think that the players tried to outsmart their coach and stay in victory formation, so they didn't go in a different formation and have him call timeout to then chew them out. The old it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission kind of situation. However, it's exactly like you said. Now that they have done that, they're going to go in victory formation next year, and a defensive lineman is going to blow up their left guard. Going, well, you did 100%. This last time, so we're not going to believe it. It's the same thing where I always worried about. It was a couple of years ago where a college quarterback pulled the old okey doke. He put his hand up and was jogging out of bounds just that last step or two, going, I'm giving myself up. I'm just going to go out of bounds. I'm not even going to try to gain a yard. The defender slowed up and he turned to jets and went up the sideline and scored a touchdown. He's like, that is now why quarterbacks get blasted, even though they have a step out of bounds, because you don't know what they're going to do. And it's wow, I'm being so smart and I'm over smarting the competition. It's like they're going to now play 100% all the way through, and you're going to get blasted one of these times.
Karma bites, because that quarterback is actually now one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, in Kenny Pickett.
Oh, is that Pickett that did that play? I totally forgot
it was Pickett.
It was him. That's even
so
better. It's so great. Tennessee gets their win, eliminating the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, we talk about time. We watch First Things First, and Nick Wright is very much into the prince that was promised, as he calls him, Trevor Lawrence. Is Trevor Lawrence taking a step back, or was the injury just worse than he was trying to put on, and they just never were able to get back into a rhythm? Because they fell off hard at the end of the year.
They did. They were 8-3 in complete command of the division, and just lost it. Just didn't even make the playoffs, which is insane. It makes you wonder about, whether Peterson is that guy. Like, it gives you those type of questions. When it comes to Trevor, though, I still think that talent it's there. It's there. I think the injury, I think he's just in his own head. It just needs to be better decision making on his part. At the same time, Ryan Tannehill's not that bad of a quarterback on the other side. When you could get play action going, Ryan Tannehill is really good. So, and Yeah, I mean, he was kind of, in a sense, if you think about it, he was either playing for his job in this game or he was playing for his next job.
Yeah, right.
So,
With all of the rookie quarterbacks that are projected to get picked in the first 10 picks this year, I think there's like 4 of them already, and Michael Penix Jr. might try to get himself in it. Is Ryan Tannehill going to be one of the 32 starting quarterbacks, or does he have to find a situation where he can be a backup in a situation like it was in Tennessee, where it's kind of volatile, and he can be that surefire backup that is a fantastic plan to go to if plan A doesn't work?
I think Ryan Tannehill would be an awesome fit in Atlanta with Bijan Robinson. And if they could get into the play action style over there, where they got Kyle Pitts, they got Drake London. So
Mhm.
I think he'd be a good fit over there. I do think
Right.
that I do think Ryan Tannehill is a starting quarterback next season. I think he's a bridge quarterback, kind of like Alex Smith was, and all that.
Mhm.
But I do think he starts next year. I do think so.
Yeah, Atlanta would be a good fit. Or do you think Justin Fields comes back? That was another quarterback to me here in Week 18. And the last couple of weeks, he did better over the last month than he did against the Packers in that contest.
Yeah,
But I really felt like Justin Fields was auditioning, like you said, for like Tannehill for his
yeah.
job or for his next job. What does Chicago do?
I If I'm Chicago, I don't pass up on a quarterback. Like, so I think Justin Fields is better than what he's shown. I think that he's been failed by the Chicago franchise, as many quarterbacks have already done so. Um, but they cannot take the chance of signing this guy and saying, "Hey, let's just surround him with talent." When you got somebody like Caleb Williams waiting in the wings right there,
Mhm.
I think I am a Caleb Williams fan. I think he's great. So I think that they do. I think they do need to trade Justin Fields and they need to draft Caleb Williams. I think Justin Fields is going somewhere.
Yeah, I am not as high on Caleb Williams as a lot of people. I don't think he's the for sure guy
Mm.
in this draft, and I don't think he's like the next go-to guy. I don't know if he's going to be a bust like Harry has
Well, there you
said.
go. That's just proof that he's going to be good.
Well, hey, we're getting ribbing, and it's not to me. I'm loving this. Um, with that said, 'cause to me, like we keep getting these quarterbacks that are you cannot miss on this guy. Trevor Lawrence was that for years. We heard about he was going to be the guy. Now, to be fair, Trevor Lawrence was the best of his draft class. Because go and look at the rest of the draft class. Justin Fields is the second best in it, but it's not even close. But I don't think Trevor Lawrence is topping the charts by any means. Andrew Luck was the other guy that was that for sure guy, and
Oh, he
and
was too.
I think his offensive line ruined his
Yeah,
career,
yeah.
and I
Indy
don't
ruined
blame
it.
him for returning or retiring as soon as he did. Yes, Zach Wilson is a good point for that. But so I still don't know about Caleb Williams, and we will see. The good chance he's number one, but Chicago's in this really interesting situation. They are the number one overall pick because they have Carolina's pick because of the trade last year to give up Bryce Young. They also have the ninth pick. So they have two of the top nine. However, you're not going to take a non quarterback
Yeah.
at the number one pick, especially this year when there's so many to choose from. And you're not going to draft a quarterback, I don't think, and keep Justin Fields for one more year.
If
So what do you
I
do?
don't I don't fully agree with that because
Okay.
if they want to commit to Justin Fields, and the problem with committing to Justin Fields is the fact that you're going to have to pay this guy to keep seeing if he's going to work it out. As Harry just pointed out, is where I was going. I would take Marvin Harrison Jr., pair him up with DJ Moore if you're going to stick with Justin Fields.
Mhm.
It's just, or hey, you know what? Marvin Harrison at one, you're sticking with Justin Fields. Now, if a quarterback like a Drake May or anybody falls to number 9, even Michael Penix, maybe. I mean, with that type of talent,
Mhm.
you do, at number 9, a quarterback falls, then you take the
Mhm.
quarterback there.
Now I have no problem with Chicago with their first pick taking
Yeah.
Marvin Harrison Jr. But if that's going to be their plan and they want to keep Justin Fields, then you trade away the first overall pick and you try to get a New England to move up 2 spots. Or you could even, we've seen this before, the Chicago Bears did it themselves. Have Washington trade to move up 1 spot, get some draft capital, and then you draft Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not sure exactly where Harrison's going to fall and how far you want to drop yourself to make sure that you still get him. But,
If
or
I'm
there's a
Chicago, I
way.
don't trust my history in trading in the draft. Because, like you were just talking about, we all saw how that turned out.
No, you can't get rid of Eberflus. Eberflus is the greatest coach name of all time. Only because I watch Rich Eisen and they freak out every time they say his name. But Chicago also could go the opposite direction, and that's why I think they're so fascinating over these next few months. They could trade down and bulk up the draft picks, or they could do what Carolina attempted to do. Just Bryce Young, I don't think, took that step forward as everyone was trying to predict with Bryce Young, and Carolina really struggled. But they, like I said, they have the first pick and the 9th pick. They could use the 9th pick and pieces to all of a sudden have 2 top 4 picks like Carolina did. And you could go quarterback and wide receiver right off the bat if you so choose. Sure. And maybe move Justin. There's so many options for the Bears to do. And he's watching NXT. We're going to lose Harry. I'm shocked we have Harry. And why don't they just build like a San Francisco? It's so hard. Like, I don't think people understand. It's like not. There he goes. He's back. He goes
because they don't have Shanahan. That's I mean, the Shanahan system's so well built and just goes everywhere. Like it could go to any franchise. That's the problem. They don't have somebody like that where you could take like a Brock Purdy and put him in the system. A Jimmy G and Jimmy G's garbage. We all agree, but he got him to a Super Bowl in that system.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. I don't. Yeah, you're.
No, I'm with you. Like San Francisco, that took years to build, and obviously they did it like you're supposed to. They got the offensive line, they got some good defensive pieces, they got some ridiculous weapons, and then they inserted the quarterback to it.
Then they lucked into the quarterback.
Yeah,
that's the thing. People don't want to admit it. They lucked into that quarterback.
100%.
That way they can keep all these pieces.
Yeah, and that's actually exactly what I was about to say, and Chris absolutely nails it. There's so many people that go quarterback first and then try to build around it. Look at how many times the Jets have drafted the quarterback, and they are still trying to get an offensive line that can keep the defense off of the quarterback for more than 2 seconds. So that is also fair where they could try to go that way. And that's also a reason to trade out of that first pick. Go with Justin Fields for 1 more year. Bulk up all your draft picks and just go ape for a year or 2 with your draft picks. I thought they did a beautiful job last year and building a good draft capital, and they can do even more if they move out of that top spot.
But I do think that again with San Francisco, they built a defense, right? They were good. They had to pay Jimmy G because you had to pay the quarterback with the trade and all that. I don't think San Francisco's went and, as he says, then get your guy. They didn't get their guy. They lucked into their guy.
Yeah.
Because they were about
but sometimes that works too.
Sometimes it does. And it's working out great for them. They're phenomenal. They're probably the second best team, maybe third, depending on who you talk to. Just depends on how it shakes out. So, yeah.
All right, before we get into the actual playoff teams and the 14 teams that matter the rest of the way, 18 teams had their season come to it. Oh, there you go. The bias is already here, folks. We have 18 teams. Their season came to an end. I wanted to have some fun, and we posted our final power rankings of the year here today. And I had some fun, and I went back and looked at our preseason rankings.
I want to know this.
You were part of it. You were part of the preseason part, and then life got in your way, and you were unable to help us out as much. But you were part of the preseason voting. So looking at the playoff teams this year, Cleveland moved up 10 spots over the year. We were putting them as a fringe playoff team. We all were completely down on the Los Angeles Rams. They moved up 18 spots up to 10. And of course, I mean, who is going to believe in the Houston Texans? They moved up 20 spots from our
Nico Ryan's
preseason
coach of the
rankings.
year.
And then, of course, Tampa Bay, which I don't think, if we didn't set it up where the playoff teams had to be the top 14, I don't think we put them 14th, to be fair. But they did move up 15 spots. So
That's a
the whole
testament
point,
to Baker, man.
yeah, that's
Baker's
true
been
too.
really solid.
So there are 4 playoff teams that we had in our preseason rankings as not being playoff teams. Who is that team right now that missed the playoffs that people are not going to buy into in the offseason that you really think people should? Because I think last year, and obviously with Aaron Rodgers getting hurt and the Jets falling back to Trevor Siemian and the mess that they had, that they were an offseason darling that completely fell off. I think Detroit, we all came out of week 18 going, they will be a playoff team. But nobody saw Houston coming. Is there a team that you are noticing that you think other people aren't?
If Green Bay didn't make the playoffs, that would have been my easy pick because Jordan
Right.
Love is that dude. I'm actually really happy to see that for him. But I'm gonna go with the Cardinals, man. I really think depending on who they like, how their draft shakes out, what they draft in the top 10, I think the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals. Kyler Murray's coming back from that injury. He's not looked terrible. He's shown flashes of Kyler Murray. I really think the Cardinals might be that team next season.
Yeah, that's a really good pick. They finished 4-13. Probably a sexier pick than the team I was thinking of, and we've talked about them a lot, so we don't need to get into it. But the Atlanta Falcons getting out from underneath Arthur Smith. You talked about all the weapons that they have. I think their defense is better than they showed, especially against New Orleans. Obviously, they need to find the right quarterback. I just don't think Desmond Ridder is the guy. But the weapons they have, they could be a San Francisco situation. Their defense is not quite up to that level yet, but they definitely could. And also, I mean, we're all going to pick them next year, so they're not the sexy team. But the fact that Cincinnati, with losing Joe Burrow for a lot of that year and still finishing 9-8, it just shows you how really good that team is. I think again, that's not a team I would have picked as far as
shows you that he's a system quarterback.
Yeah, and I don't think you disagree. Yeah, the fact that Nick Wright put Jake Browning first on his Mahomes Mountain.
I love it. Yeah, because
so
Jake Browning was not bad.
No, he was good.
Now,
he might have earned himself a job.
Yeah, when he might, like we were talking about Tannehill earlier, Jake Browning might either become the best backup still like next season, or he might get a starting position. But the system is Jamar Chase, in my opinion. But we will see how that works without. We'll see what happens without T. Higgins next season.
Yeah, T. Higgins had a really, really good year as well. Cincinnati will be an interesting team, and there's going to be so much movement over these next couple of months that we will see where everyone goes. But I do like your Arizona pick. I was really down on Kyler Murray coming into the year. Obviously, it took him a few weeks to get back into the rhythm after coming back from his ACL tear. But I thought these last couple of weeks really showed that, man, if there was a full season of Kyler Murray with what they have right now, they could have contended for one of those last wild card spots. So I like that pick. All right, let's get into it. 6 wild card games incoming, though. Is anybody really watching the one on Monday? I mean, we're all NFL fans, but are we really going to watch Philadelphia and Tampa Bay? Like, really?
I mean, I am. Because I told
you
before.
Fair,
so I don't know if we're getting into the predictions, right? But I told you that there is a big upset that I was going to be predicting for Wild Card Weekend, and that's my upset.
There you go. We'll get to it. We'll go right down the line of when they come out or when they get played, and we'll get all of our predictions out there. So, but honestly, the question is, I don't even know which side is the actual upset there.
Fair.
I think it's a lot more even than it is. But all right, it's starting with the Cleveland Browns. And as Rich Eisen shows loves to say, the Flacco-sance that is going on in Cleveland. And CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. This one's at Saturday, 1:30 p.m. on NBC. These two teams just played a couple of weeks ago. The Browns got the win 36-22. They were up 36-7 and before they just stepped off the gas. However, CJ Stroud did not play in this game. But do you know who played in this game? The Houston defense. They were out there. But Joe Flacco was ridiculous in that game. 368 yards, threw 3 touchdowns. Did the Flacco thing, and he threw 2 interceptions.
Yeah.
He can't help himself. But even with CJ Stroud, I really think Cleveland is the better team here, even though they're on the road. What about you?
I'm going to preface this by saying I'm a Stroud homer at this point. Like I'm a stan, Stroud stan. They said the whole thing about um, quarterbacks coming out of Ohio State are never good in the NFL. Well, Stroud just put that to rest real quick. I think I texted you before when he was like really on his game before he got hurt that I do not want to see Stroud in the playoffs.
Right.
Saying that though, I do think Cleveland wins, but I think it's a closer game than some people might think just because I think the Cleveland defense is really good, except for the fact that they were number one in passing yards or yards given up
Right.
in terms of defense, but they're not even top 10 in points. I haven't looked at it. I saw that stat the other day because I was in an argument with somebody. Big surprise. And I was really surprised. I was like, how the hell is this possible?
Honestly, as a Jets fan, I can tell you that sometimes you give up more points than the yardage shows because you have a Joe Flacco who gives the other offense a short field. The Jets, I want to say last year in their horrible season where they were bouncing between Wilson and Flacco and Mike White, were middle of the pack in points per game allowed defensively, but they were top 3 in expected points allowed, where there's a formula out there where based on the other team's starting field position, you have an expected amount of points you're going to score from that starting spot. And the Jets were the best at preventing the most points from that situation. So that's what I would say for the points per game deal.
Yeah, but I don't think the Houston defense is that
could turn turnovers too. So
I don't think the Houston defense is that bad. They got Will Anderson Jr. They got Derek Stingley. They have talent on the defense. They have a defensive coach who's proven himself already. I think this honestly is probably a 1-score game. That 1 score is probably a touchdown. But I do think that this Flacco renaissance is going to continue on, and I really hope it does for the game after that. So yeah, I'm taking Cleveland in this game.
Yeah, Flacco has been ridiculous. 5 games with Cleveland, over 1,600 yards, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Just for aspect purposes, he played 5 games for the Jets last year. 3% less completion percentage, 450 less yards. He had 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions at that point. The one thing that I will bring
up... That's the difference of an offensive line.
That's also true. That's 100% true. But the one thing I will bring up, and the one thing we haven't talked about, CJ Stroud has been phenomenal, and he is doing things that we don't see from a lot of rookies. And that's, I mean, spoilers, that's why I think he will be the offensive player, the rookie of the year, even though I do think another player might have deserved it a bit more. But rookies do not play well in the postseason. And even if you want to throw Trevor Lawrence out there, it was his second year. He wasn't a rookie, but he goes out there, throws 5 interceptions in the first half, does have the crazy comeback. But that's Chargers being Chargers at that point.
Yeah, that's chargering, according to AFC West fans.
We'll do a trivia question to you here real quick. You got me on a wrestling one before we started the show. Brock Purdy, as a rookie, was able to win last year with the San Francisco 49ers. Who is the last rookie to win a playoff game since Purdy?
Deshaun Watson?
Nope, he did not.
He wasn't a rookie?
Not win his rookie year.
And
it was later than him. Yeah, I've looked up several lists.
Oh, it's later than him? Okay, then I don't know off the top of my head then, yeah.
Yeah, because it's... I was trying to find how many rookies had started, and every website I went to gave me a different number. But
no, it was the second year, Josh Allen was the rookie, I think. That's what it was. Yeah.
Russell Wilson was the last rookie quarterback to win a game in 2012. Spoilers, that was won because of the defense.
Yeah,
that was
the Legion of Boom.
And Chris, the Seattle fan, does get it right there too. There have been 7 rookie quarterbacks ever to win a playoff game. Sean King did it for Tampa Bay in 99. Ben Roethlisberger with that great Steelers defense in
Mhm.
04, Joe Flacco and the
Yeah.
good defense in Baltimore in 08. One Mark Sanchez. Nobody was saying Mark Sanchez was winning those games in 09 for the
Buff Bubble
Jets.
himself. Let's go.
TJ Yates, of all people, for Houston in 2011. Obviously, he was a
Wow.
backup quarterback and injuries happened. And then Russell Wilson was the other, along with Brock Purdy. So CJ Stroud, as a rookie, I think is better than all 7 of those names as far as when they were a rookie. However, rookies, there have been better rookies that had worse playoff performances in their first go around. I think because they try to do too much. So that is what I am worried about.
Saying there's better rookies is really a big stretch for me personally from what I've seen. Like, I think this is one of the best rookies we've seen
That's fair.
in a very long time. I mean, we could get that sophomore slump next year. You never know.
Mhm.
Whatever, it could happen. I mean, Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, threw
It's
28
horrible as a
interceptions in
rookie.
his
He was
rookie
so
season,
bad.
and CJ Stroud threw what, 5? I think.
Yeah.
It's just the kid's
I would
good.
honestly have to go back and look at the numbers. And maybe it is just my memory being fuzzy because we're getting up there in age, sir.
Yeah,
But I
absolutely.
want to remember like an RG3. Right? That was a rookie season that I thought was going to be untouchable. I don't know where the numbers all ended up, but he was
He was good.
dominant as a rookie. And then Washington just destroyed his body and he completely
Oh,
fell
you're still
apart.
injured? Cool. Let's go back in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just rough.
They
So all
deserve it.
3 of
That
us, by the
franchise
way,
deserves everything they get.
I do have Hagen's picks as well. He also picked Cleveland. So
Okay.
congratulations to Houston for winning that game since all 3 of us agreed. Let's move on to the next one. And I'm just going to get this right out of the way. What a ballsy move by the NFL or NBC or whoever made this decision. But they were set up to have a Peacock only playoff game, a streaming only playoff game. And then they threw the Kansas City Chiefs in that game. They were locked in for that game before Monday night or the Sunday night football was over. So they already knew Kansas City, you want to watch Patrick Mahomes, pay for at least $4.99 for Peacock. Lucky for us, we're wrestling fans. We already
Yeah.
paid $9.99 for Peacock because we want ad free.
But I don't think, honestly, I don't think it was Mahomes. I think it's Swifties. I think they wanted in charge
that's
of
also
Swifties,
true.
honestly. I think they
That's
said, wow,
fair.
okay, the ratings have been up because Taylor Swift for the Chiefs games. Let's put it behind a
That's
paywall.
That's fair. 100% fair. But this
Yeah.
is at 5:15 on Saturday. I'm not even going to ask you your pick. We already know you, but both Hagen and I are also taking your Kansas City Chiefs. And before I let you go on your rant, I'm going to get the good notes out of the way, and then I'm going to let you explain why not only are these the reasons why the Chiefs are going to win, but the Chiefs are actually pretty good too, and you can talk about that. But for all of the talk of the Cleveland Browns having the best defense in the league, and it's all about Mahomes, and or Kansas City is not playing that great offensively lately. Like, people don't realize that Kansas City has possibly the best defense in the league, second on yardage, first in points per game. You've brought it up to me several times, and you're 100% right. And that's actually one of the arguments you bring up with the Chiefs. I can't even argue with is the defense is really underrated there for Kansas City because everyone's focused on Mahomes and Kelsey and the receivers that are dropping passes. So Miami does have a really good offense. We will give them that, but defense usually trumps offense come to playoffs. That's, I think, why we all pick Cleveland. It's also nothing has gone right for Miami. They are without Andrew Van Ginkel. They're without Jerome Baker. They're without Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb and
Xavier
just
Howard.
Xavier. Just the list of people. Is Waddle going to be back? We're not sure for the playoff game just yet. Miami is decimated with injuries right now. Oh, and with their loss to Buffalo, they have to go to Kansas City, where they have struggled against good teams to begin with. And exactly. The Dolphins have lost their last 10 games. when the temperature is 40 or below, and they lose by an average of 17 points. Oh, yeah. And it's projected to be about 2 degrees.
Yeah.
And get colder. That's
yeah.
kickoff time. Tua is 0-4 in games that are the temperatures under 45 degrees. It's a complete disaster. Everything points towards Kansas City, and I do think the Chiefs are going to win this game. Now, you tell me why it's not because of the weather and not because of the injuries, just because Kansas City is the better team.
Yeah, all fair play to the Dolphins. I'm not gonna be super homer on this, dude. I like Tyreek. I like Waddle. I like what the Dolphins have done in terms of how they've beaten on bad teams. But it's just I don't think the team is good at adjusting when things don't go right, and I don't think McDaniel's got that experience yet to really just basically change his game. So that's the main reason. On top of the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs have the second best defense in the entire league, which is weird to say after the last 5 years or whatever of Mahomes in this offense. The Chief fence is actually finally really a thing. So they've already played once in Germany, completely nullified the offense. Tyreek was just didn't mean anything.
Yeah, he was okay. 8 catches, 62 yards. I mean, he was fine.
With a game-changing fumble by the guy that they drafted with one of the draft picks from his trade, by the way, Trent McDuffie. But the strength of this Chiefs defense and the reason why they're going to win it has nothing to do with the I guess the big names, so to speak. The Chris Jones on defense, right? The Nick Bolton. It has to do with the fact that the secondary is probably the best secondary in the NFL. And I will stand by that. I think with Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, and my pick, and it might be a little homerish, but the stats could back it up because I think they're better than what Stephon Gilmore was. L'Jarius Sneed, defensive player of the year. The receivers are locked up. Mm-hmm. So Tua has nowhere to go. And that's just going to mean he's going to hold on to the ball longer, and that just means that Chris Jones or George Karlaftis or Mike Dan is going to get home, or Justin Reed blitzing from the safety. So I think this is going to be a little different. They won, I think it was 21-14 in Week 9. Chiefs went up 21-0, and then couldn't score in the second half. I think the offense is different in the postseason. I think they have less MVS and more Hardman, who showed a lot in this game with Blaine Gabbert as his quarterback against the Chargers. I do think that they're actually starting to open up on Rashee Rice a lot with the deep threat, with the deep balls. I think they're finally figuring out what they need to do, and I think they're going to lean on Pacheco to run the rock in the cold, get those open balls to those deep balls to Rashee Rice when they call for it, and I honestly believe the Chiefs are going to win this by more than 2 touchdowns.
Honestly, with all the elements, like I told you, I was so excited to finally get you on this show so we could bicker back and forth, and then it's this matchup where I agree. I think it could be a blowout. Again,
I do think Mahomes throws a stupid interception, though. I will say that. I do think he throws a stupid interception, and it's probably going to be a throw to MVS or something. So,
does Travis Kelce finally bounce back here for the postseason, or is he just kind of showing his age all of a sudden?
I think the rest last week he chose to rest, right? He was 16 yards away from breaking 1,000 for the 8th consecutive season. He chose to rest. I think he bounces back in the postseason, and I think it's going to start with this game, and I think he's going to bounce back in this game because they are going to use Pacheco and even Clyde, who's been showing some glimpses of like what he was drafted to be, to just pound the rock, and it's going to force them to come down. It's going to force the double teams away from Kelce. I do think, I think Kelce probably hits at least 65 in this game.
There you go. All right, let's go to the final AFC game, as it'll be Sunday morning, and I don't know if this is going to be a fun game either, unless the playoff Josh Allen shows back up. Pittsburgh will be at Buffalo. I think it's a 10-point spread in Vegas right now. Hagen and I are both taking Buffalo. TJ Watt for the Steelers has been ruled out in this game. I think that's a huge blow. Mason Rudolph will get the start. He's looked okay, I think, for the Steelers
Better
over
than
these last
Pickett.
couple of weeks. Yeah, I mean, again, as you say, the people that he's played around, the competition is really not there. But the 7 seeds, since they have added it in, it just shows that I don't think they should have expanded the playoffs. The 7 seed has yet to win, and they get blown out by more than double digits every single time, or on average. And I mean, the Steelers 1-10 with JJ Watt or TJ Watt, excuse me, out of their lineup. They give up more than a touchdown a game when he is unable to play. I think Buffalo is the hottest team coming in. I think week 18 was their perfect chance to slip up because that was, in all aspects, a do or die game. If Jacksonville would have won, it would have been a do or die game, a 2 seed or miss the playoffs. And while Josh Allen did make his normal Josh Allen mistakes, I continue to put Josh Allen in the same mindset as a Brett Favre. Will I say Josh
Oh
Allen
yeah.
is as good as Brett Favre? No, but he's in that same mindset where he's going to have a mistake or two where you go, can you even trust him to throw the ball in key situations?
He's
And
Brett
then in
Favre
the
without
second
the
half,
accolades.
he will just go absolutely bonkers. So I do think that this played out perfectly for the Buffalo Bills. That win changed the season for them and Miami. I think Miami gets bounced now. And I think Buffalo, not only getting to host the worst team in the AFC that's still in contention this week, and then guaranteed to host most likely Kansas City, which again is their best case scenario to face the Chiefs. It works out beautifully, I think, for the Bills.
Yeah. TJ Watt decided to play because I honestly I actually thought he might try to play because he's a madman. Uh, Game probably could have been like, ooh, I could see Pittsburgh pulling it off, but I think the Bills take this. I
Mhm.
don't think they're as hot going into the playoffs as they were. Like because the last couple weeks they've kind of limped, in my opinion. They looked
Okay.
terrible against the Easton Stick Chargers and barely pulled that out. They looked terrible against the Patriots and barely pulled that out. They looked terrible in the beginning of the Dolphins game. And if it wasn't for that punt return,
Mhm.
you might be looking at like, hey, Bills ain't in the playoffs. Well, I mean, they would still be because Jacksonville is Jacksonville now. But still, you wouldn't be looking at them in the 2 seed, right? So I however, Josh Allen's pretty good in the wild card round in recent years
Mhm.
in the playoffs. So I I think the TJ Watt is just such a huge loss for that defense. I mean it would have I think I would have put the Bills on more of like a 70-30 before the TJ Watt loss, but yeah, I think they're more like 95-5 at this point.
Yeah, that would be a surprising upset, possibly the
Yeah.
most surprising upset in the wild card round if the Steelers were able to get that win. No, I'm sure you would instantly send me 30 messages just of laughing gifs
No, no,
if they
like
did.
honest on everything. I want the Bills to win, and I want to go to Buffalo. I want the Chiefs to go to
That's fair.
Buffalo. It would put a lot of stuff to rest.
That's true. I mean, if Kansas, you said too, if the road, if it plays out the way it is, where Kansas City has to go to Buffalo and then Baltimore, and then still makes it to the Super Bowl, I do get that narrative as well.
Yeah.
Let's get to the NFC games. Run through these really quick. Is the first one 1:30 p.m. Historically, this looks awesome, and Fox is just going to have so many video packages of the Green Bay Packers and Dallas Cowboys and all
Yeah.
of their historic playoff games that they've had throughout the history of the NFL. And I know Dallas is this team that a lot of people are extremely high on. We're buddies with a couple Cowboys fans. Sean Garmer is really high on this team. So is Gary Vaughn, who I used to do a podcast with as well. Don't sleep on Haley's Green Bay Packers at all. What are your
I,
thoughts on this game before I get to my stuff?
uh, Packers are mostly a pass team, at least from what I say. I don't follow them as closely, but from everything I've seen, they're more of a passing team than running team. And as I said before, I'm a huge fan of Love. I think he's great, and it's actually great to see this happening because he's leading a team to the playoffs that even Aaron Rodgers couldn't lead. So but their game is going to play right into the defense of the Cowboys, in my opinion, man. I with Gilmore, I think he's playing, and then you got Deron Bland in the defense. I think you have to have a really, really strong running game at this point to be the Cowboys, as teams have proven this year. And I don't know if the Packers have it strong enough at this point.
Well, to be fair, and I know you haven't watched them as much. We watch them a lot, obviously, because Haley
Of
is
course, yeah.
a Packer fan. They were without Aaron Jones for a lot of the season, and he is their bell cow. AJ Dillon just has not been the guy
Yeah.
that he was showing to be the promise of. He had 22 carries, 111 yards in that win against the Bears. They're definitely going to need it. The thing that I've really liked about the Green Bay Packers, especially this last 2 months or so, is Aaron Rodgers really struggled with this team because he just could not find the connections with the young receivers. And Christian Watson still being out has shown that it's been difficult for them. And they have so many no-name receivers that Aaron Rodgers just could not find trust with. And Love is able to do that. And he has so many different weapons to go to. I am with you, though. The only way the Packers are going to win this game is if Aaron Jones has a really good game on the ground and the Packers really are able to maintain time of possession. I am picking Dallas to win this game, mostly because they are a different team at home than they are on the road. Yeah, 16 straight wins. How about the stat I saw today? 8-0 this year at home, and they're winning by an average of 21 points per game.
Look at who they played. I don't think they're going to win by
playoff teams. 3 playoff teams at home. Thank you to First Things First for that stat.
But
Green Bay, they've played some bad ones too, of course.
Yeah.
Or as they say on that show, tomato cans. They very much love their tomato cans on First Things First. But Green Bay, just 1-5 on the road against non-division opponents. Obviously, different time when you play division games. Their 1 win on the road against a non-division opponent. You want to talk about a tomato can of all tomato cans? It was the Carolina Panthers. And the Packers only won that game by 3. And it was only a couple weeks ago. Green Bay is also the youngest team in the league. So, the nerves coming into a playoff game, you're not going to have a lot of playoff experience on it. I love what Jordan Love's been able to do last 8 games, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's looked great. The future is bright for Green Bay. I hope it's a more competitive game just for my household to be sane. But I am with you. Dallas at home is going to be very difficult, but that's an upset that's a pick I hope I'm wrong on, just because I like the story of Green Bay.
I would have wanted to be wrong on that, but my cousin's a Packers fan, and his kids are Packers fans. And just recently at Christmas and all that, they're big into football now, and so now they're just all of a sudden he texted me once when the Chiefs lost to the Packers, and was, "Hey, my daughter, blah blah blah." I said, "Hannah, blah 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 blah." So now I'm like, "Oh, okay." So now I'm waiting. I need Dallas to win. So.
That works. All right. Chris brings up the question: do the Cowboys know how to win playoff games? That's more of the question for this next game
in the divisional round. That's the divisional round.
But that's also the question for this game: is the Rams go to Detroit? Another big storyline that makes people think that the NFL is scripted. As this is your Sunday night game, 5:15 p.m. Stafford versus Goff. They were traded for each other. And for those wondering who won this trade, it's the Rams that won this trade. 100%. They won the Super Bowl. It doesn't matter if they fell off for the next few years. They won the Super Bowl. Oh, yeah. And they're also in the playoffs at this point. The Lions, while they are hosting
Lions
their
fans
first
should
playoff
not be
game,
trying to even argue that they won the trade.
No. But still, it gets Detroit into the playoffs, or hosting a playoff game for the first time in over 30 years. They're trying to win their first while. This is a stat that I saw. I think CBS posted this one. The Lions are the only team in the National Football League that has never won a wild card round game.
Wow. That's a hell of a stat.
That was a wild stat to me. Oh, yeah. And the Lions, for whatever reason, we didn't talk about it because I knew we were going to bring it up for these playoff games. The Lions, even though they were basically locked in as the 3 seed, the only way they could go to a 2 seed was if Philadelphia and Dallas lost. And oh, man, Philadelphia. We'll get to that in a minute. but Dallas was definitely going to win their game.
Yeah.
Detroit went full bore and may have lost Sam Laporta and Khalif Raymond, two of their big offensive weapons, coming into this game because of it. So with that said, yes, congratulations, Detroit. You're hosting a playoff game. It's great. They are still going to be the only team never to win a wild card game. I'm taking the Rams on the road.
I honestly thought when we were going to do this, we were going to be like arguing a lot more, but no, I'm taking the Rams, dude.
What the hell?
And I probably would have taken the Rams even if Sam Laporta was still playing, just because I trust McVay more than I do Dan Campbell. I love Dan Campbell, but I trust McVay. Stafford's been there. I know Jared Goff's been there, but like difference in talent, in my opinion. I just trust the Rams to be able to just get this done, and I do think. I mean, going back to that scripted thing, man. Yeah, you got Stafford going back to Detroit, Tyreek going back to Arrowhead. You got the Packers going to face McCarthy. I mean,
the colors of the Super Bowl logo being purple and
so,
red.
I mean, but I do think I think this is going to be an awesome game. Like Chris said, this is going to be the might be the best game of the week. With Laporta getting hurt, I'm not sure if I can agree. I think it would have been. But I do think McVay is just going to outcoach Dan Campbell at this point.
Yeah. I honestly think the Browns-Texans might be the game of the week. It's the most intriguing game to me.
I think it might be, yeah.
And finally, Philadelphia and their implosion is going to Tampa Bay. Everyone joked, haha, whoever is second in the NFC East gets a bye week in the wild card round because they have to play the weak team that wins the NFC South. Well, the Eagles have lost 5 of their last 6, and the Buccaneers have won 5 of their last 6. However, I mean, they only did beat the Panthers 9-0 in a game that you would have thought was played at Foxborough with how horrible the two offenses were. Honestly, I think if Philadelphia would have won the division and Dallas was in this spot, I would pick the Cowboys, even though they have road struggles to beat the Buccaneers by 30. But the Eagles are in a tailspin. I don't know if the players are fully buying in right now. I feel like there's some issues going on behind the scenes. Then you lose possibly A.J. Brown to his injury. Jalen Hurts' finger looks like a jigsaw puzzle right now. It's a complete mess for Philadelphia. So while I still don't really buy into Tampa Bay, and I do think Baker Mayfield, while he's played better, and we'll talk about him when we get to our NFL awards, they are a big play offense with him and Evans, and they just try to stand their ground the rest of the way. I'm taking the Buccaneers here.
I told you this was my upset pick before the show, right? I depending on the odds, I'm assuming that Eagles are the favorites.
The last I saw it was Eagles -3.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I actually don't think this game is close. As I'm trying to get my shit back into focus, there we go. Maybe. What's going on? There we go. I actually don't think this is close. I think that Nick Sirianni is a terrible coach. I think that he was kind of propped up a bit much by his coordinators, his defensive coordinator and offense, especially his offensive coordinator. Shane Steichen is actually really good. And then, I just drew a blank. Apologize for the F-bomb there. I just drew a blank on the defensive coordinator in Arizona. But I think they're really good. Irregardless of what happened in the Super Bowl, I think he was still really good. And I think this season is really going to come to an end in this wild card game. I really think that I think Jalen is kind of regressing this season. Could be due to injuries, could be due to the fact that, hey, Shane Steichen's not there. I think that Baker has looked really comfortable, that 9-0 nothing game notwithstanding. And I really do think that I think this might be like a quote unquote coming out game for Baker in a sense. If the Green Bay, the Lambeau game wasn't his coming out party, I think this one might be for Baker.
Yeah, and honestly, it's good to see. I have a friend that absolutely hates Baker Mayfield, and she just loses her mind anytime anything positive happens with him. But I think he wins the playoff game here. It'll be interesting. By the way, Robert Hagan agreed with us this whole way through until this game. He's taking Philadelphia. So that ends our clean sweep here. So you and I have been friendly because we keep agreeing. But now let's look forward. We agree for the wild card round. But now give me your AFC championship game, your NFC championship game, and then who's going to win the Super Bowl. And I believe you and I will finally disagree here.
So I got to think about it in my head how it's going to work out. Real quick in my head because I actually didn't think about this. I'm just trying to get past
brought this up to you, but
yeah, give me a second. Hold on. So
yeah, you're good.
There, and then you go there. All right. Full homerism in effect here. I honestly think that the Arrowhead Invitational is still in play.
Wow. Okay.
I think that the Chiefs host the Browns.
That would be insane. And honestly, like that's not going to be my prediction, but with things playing out as we believe that they'll play out this week, you're telling me that the Browns, a division rival with the Baltimore Ravens, can't go in there and pull off the upset when the Ravens are taking 20 some days off, and that worked so well for them the last time they tried to do this? That would not shock me. And then, of course, I mean, Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, we see it all the time. So I am not totally against you there, though I am going to go slightly different. I still think Josh Allen falls off against the Chiefs, even though it'll be at home this year. So I do think Kansas City does continue to make the AFC Championship game, whether that be 6 years in a row that they would make that.
Yeah, it's their floor.
And then I can't not believe in what the Baltimore Ravens has done. I don't like that they didn't play anybody in that last week. I think Lamar should have played the first half. But again, if he gets hurt, then what are you going to do? But that defense and that team in general, what they were able to do against San Francisco and Miami, I just can't not buy into them. So I'm going to have Baltimore hosting Kansas City. And I'll say the Ravens do win that game at home as Lamar finally gets going. But like I said before, like I was so ready to have this conversation, and then the brackets fell out the way they were, and Kansas City, like the two teams ahead of them, are two quarterbacks that you really can't trust in January.
Yeah,
it really kind of fell out the way the Chiefs were hoping.
If you look at it, the two quarterbacks with the most experience at winning in the postseason are on the Chiefs and are on the Browns.
Yeah,
so it's I think I don't know, man. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
I'm excited for it.
Yeah, on the NFC, I really do think it'll be chalk there. Give me 49ers and Cowboys, and then 49ers make it, which makes it really boring. It's so rare that the 2-1 seeds make it to the Super Bowl, and it happened last year. And this year has been so off the wall. I should not pick it this way, but I can't think of another team right now in the NFC that I think could make that run. Maybe the Rams because of Stafford and their history and their wide receiver core. But I think the Cowboys will fall apart. So give me the 49ers.
Give me the 54 rematch. That's what I'm banking on. Give me the Super Bowl 54 rematch. So Chiefs, 49ers, let's do it again. And watch the 49er fans cry.
It's going to be, I'm very excited. Again, as a Jets fan, I'm so used to watching the playoffs without my team involved. And I just come on to, I know you all, we make predictions on this show, but I get asked who you're rooting for. I'm like, I don't care. I want a good game. Like if my prediction's wrong, I don't care. Like at the end of the day, whatever.
And I do want to say this too. I so hope that every playoff game for the Chiefs ends in a questionable penalty or something. I really do. Heard so much of it this season. I just want it to just blow up.
The referees have just been rough, and it's been every game.
It's just but because the Chiefs are prolific, that they're getting the most of it. So, and I'm just like, whatever at this point, just.
But to be fair, I mean, when we get it all, I don't. Nobody cares about the Jets, but Right. You're a Chiefs fan, so we're not going to come to you and make fun of a call
Yeah.
that benefited the Texans and the Chiefs weren't involved. So you're going to hear all the ones that happened to
Yeah.
your team, and that's just how it
Of
works.
course.
But it is what it is, and we'll see
Yeah.
where everything plays out over these next few weeks. Let's go through real quick our NFL awards and see where we fit here, where we think things are going to fall. I will real quick. I need to copy and paste these real quick because I did such great prep work. I meant to do this and I did not.
You're okay.
I will take the names that Hagen and I picked to start the year, and that they are not close in a lot of regards. By the way, we both had San Francisco in the Super Bowl. We both agree with that. Hagen
Gee,
had
what a shock.
Hagen had Baltimore at Kansas City in his AFC Championship game. That would be flipped, but he
That's
could
not
have that
possible.
right.
Yeah, that's not
Well,
possible.
but he had the same two teams. We did this
Yeah,
in the
for sure.
obviously we did this in the preseason, but he could have the same
for
two
sure.
teams.
Preseason. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this was preseason predictions. And then we both had Philadelphia at San Francisco. I don't think Philadelphia is going to make that run.
Yeah, be surprised.
I had Cincinnati in, and it injuries did not help me, but they held on as long as they could. All right. While we did that, I got these moved up. So, offensive rookie of the year, which I really think is a highly contested award this year, because I
know
Sam
why.
Laporta was really
I know
good.
why.
Yeah, Sam Laporta was really good. My pick is not going to be correct because of his head coach, but I picked Bijan Robinson, and Robert picked the wrong quarterback. He picked Bryce Young.
Oof.
But I do think that it's going to be CJ Stroud. And I think him being gone for a couple of weeks and then coming back and doing what he did to solidify the playoff spot locked him in to that
100%. 100%. Because that's the same reason for the Lamar MVP thing. Like the last couple of weeks, locked him in versus, everybody forgets about the rest of the season where, he was good, but I think CJ Stroud locked himself in. And I know the argument for a lot of people right now is Puka Nacua, right? He broke a couple of rookie records, which is great. I mean, he was amazing. He was amazing. But he was not the captain of a team that was last place, pretty much last place in the NFL, and brought him to a division championship and playoff berth. So it's
Yeah, we had the Texans 31st in our power rankings in the preseason. I just want to throw that out there again. Robert Hagen, I should say, does pick Puka Nacua as his award winner. Yes, that's why he picked the wrong person here. But again, as you said, Puka Nacua was a ridiculous year. He was a complete unknown as well. And you have to give him credit. Not only does he break these records, he made people completely forget Cooper Kupp was on the team.
Yeah, he was good. He was really good.
How about your defensive rookie of the year?
I think the odds I saw last, I think, had Jalen Carter, which I thought was really, really weird. I'm going Houston again. I think Will Anderson Jr. has been really good for the team. I thought getting CJ Stroud and then Will Anderson back to back on their picks, so to speak, was just genius. Pairing him with D'Amico Ryans. I think Will Anderson's been really good for this team and really good for the league. I think he's going to be the defensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, so much so Hagen and I both agree with you. We both put Will Anderson as well. I was surprised that Hagen took Will Anderson because he took Jalen Carter in the preseason as his award winner. So I thought he was just going to stick with it. I went Homer on my defensive rookie of the year pick because why the hell not? And nobody really knows coming out of the draft. I took Will McDonald IV because I really liked what I was seeing in the preseason.
Yeah,
he was fine, but nowhere near this award. But we all say Will Anderson. Controversial one coming up. Comeback player of the year. Hagen and I both said Damar Hamlin, if he plays, would lock it in. Obviously, our buddy Harry, a Buffalo Bills fan, still thinks he locked it in. But the guy had, 3 or 4 tackles the whole season. Fantastic story for Damar Hamlin. So glad he's healthy. So glad he's back.
Yeah.
But his story is in the past now. And yes, he came back to life. However, my comeback player of the year, and I might have sent this meme to you as well, sir. So, or maybe you sent it to me. I can't remember because we send things back and forth, and then I send them to other
Yeah.
people. But yes, DeMar Hamlin came back from death, but Joe Flacco came back from being the starting quarterback of the New York Jets, and sometimes that's worse than death. So Joe Flacco is my comeback player of the year.
Joe Flacco, 100%. DeMar Hamlin came back to do what? Like, I mean, honestly, he came back to life. Yeah, awesome.
That's
Honestly,
next year.
awesome. Glad. I'm so happy for the guy. I'm glad he's okay. Now let's talk football. What did he do?
Right.
Like, what did he do? Alex Smith still got back on the field and started games and played games. DeMar Hamlin didn't even start games.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's played like what, 3 games, a handful of snaps. Great story. Glad the guy's doing all right. Joe Flacco is. I think it's. I don't know. I could see them giving it to DeMar still because it's the story. They don't want to piss off
Yeah.
the fans, piss off the uber empathetic people and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Flacco. It's got to be Flacco.
Yeah, I think Hamlin is still your favorite, but
Ugh.
just barely slightly over Joe Flacco.
They gave it to
Robert
Gino. They could give it to Flacco.
The Gino Award just still blew my mind. It was like he never came back from anything because he was never a thing. He was always bad, and now he finally became kind of not bad.
Flacco was
and now he's back
pretty much retired. He was on his couch.
Yeah, 100%. I went with Joe Flacco as well. Robert Hagan went with an interesting one. It was one I had thought about as well. Baker Mayfield. That's another one where he didn't come back from an injury. He didn't come back from.
It's more of a Gino type.
It was a Gino thing, but his whole thing was he was let go from Carolina. Ended up being the backup for the Rams. Came in that week and won a game for the Rams that year, and did fine. And then he got this job. So I think he had a great comeback last year, and now he's had a pretty good.
Yeah, Flacco was on the couch for more than half the season. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I can guarantee you if the R&R Sports Report is still here come August or September, Aaron Rodgers will be my pick next year.
Yeah.
Just please play more than 5 snaps.
Flacco came from the couch, and DeMar still hasn't come from the bench. So
there you go.
Yeah.
That's fair. How about your coach of the year? This one could go to like 9 different people.
D'Amico Ryans.
That's fair.
I'm not. I mean, Stefanski maybe, but D'Amico Ryans. That guy's just no. Playoffs, worst team in the AFC playoffs, done.
Yeah. It was between Ryans and Stefanski for me. I went with Stefanski myself because they had 5 different quarterbacks this year.
That's fair.
And they made everything work. He built the defense. While the Ryan story is fantastic, and it's not just CJ Stroud, I give more of that credit to Stroud for what the Texans have been able to do. But D'Amico Ryans has done a fantastic job there for the Texans as well. Robert, I believe, stuck with his preseason pick and went with Dan Campbell. Yeah, getting the Lions to a home playoff game, I can kind of see, but I like our 2 picks before that.
I mean, if he was the favorite, he blew it when he got Laporta hurt.
Yeah, and I won't talk about my pick. Offensive player of the year. 3 names come to mind. Which direction do you go?
All right, so are we doing our like who we think it should be or who we probably?
You can give me both.
Okay, so based on the MVP voting on where I think it should go and versus where it's gonna go, I think the offensive player of the year should be Lamar Jackson, but it's probably gonna end up being Christian McCaffrey. So if Tyreek broke the record, it was Tyreek. But
honestly, I think the way Tyreek finished his year and the way CeeDee Lamb has been playing, I would almost put CeeDee Lamb 2 over Tyreek.
He's been that entire offense. He really has.
He's been really good. All 3 of us went Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey was also our preseason pick. So if we get it right, then yay for us. But such a shocker to go with CMC. But he was the offense there for a little bit, especially when they had their injuries in the middle of the year. And
they lost 3 straight without him.
and they just what he does is just so it's just
Yeah,
so important.
so
And
good.
actually, his only it was without Debo Samuel and
Trent Williams,
Trent Williams that they were
left
missing.
tackle.
Christian McCaffrey only missed one game this year, which is the biggest shocker of the whole year, and
Yeah.
that was last
Trent
week.
Williams is the MVP of the 49ers, but
Yeah,
tackles do not win
they don't.
awards.
It's not the
So,
sexy thing. Another one that could be really interesting, and this is one where it really goes to the big name. I'll let you go with the one you think it should be, but give me the one you think will win Defensive Player of the Year.
see, I think they're gonna give it to Myles Garrett, although TJ Watt had a better season again. I think
Mm-hmm.
TJ Watt was way better. Um, I think that's where it's gonna go. I do think that there's a huge argument, and it should be L'Jarius Sneed. The guy's had over 600 snaps in coverage and has allowed 0 touchdowns. He shut down every single number 1 receiver he's played against. And the stats are out there. He wasn't
Mm-hmm.
part of a double team. He was shutting these dudes down. So, but he's not the sexy pick, as you could tell by the Pro Bowl
Right.
votes.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's going to probably be Myles Garrett because I think he's just the sexy pick for some reason. But if it's between Garrett and Watt, it should be Watt. So
I also went with Garrett. Robert did go with TJ Watt, and that was his preseason pick too. I looked at
yeah,
the stats today, and they're eerily similar. I believe they have the same amount of sacks. I think Watt has forced 2 more fumbles than Garrett, but Garrett has missed the game, and that's why I
yeah,
lean towards him to have very similar numbers, but with one fewer game in there. I need to look at the numbers. I want to see the comparison between Sauce and Sneed. I think it would be extremely close. However, to give credit to Sneed, Gardner does not post up one-on-one with the number 1 guy. The
yeah.
Jets go left side of the field, right side of the field. And a lot of the times the other team will make sure that their top guy avoids
Yeah.
Sauce Gardner as
And
well.
you know I love Mahomes. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody does, but Snead was the best player on this Chiefs team all
Yeah,
season.
Snead was really good. But
100%.
like I said,
100%.
I'm curious about the numbers. I know Sauce did make the Pro Bowl. Anybody that watches this show knows I do not care.
Jalen Ramsey made the Pro Bowl and he
Yeah,
played
well, it's like
9 games.
yeah. So again, I don't really care about the Pro Bowl. I know that it's incentives on contracts and stuff. I still think players need to get that out of their contracts and turn it into all pros or whatever they need to do to get their money. But Pro Bowls need to not be part of contracts. And then
True.
I think we all agree Lamar Jackson is your MVP. Does he become unanimous again?
It's so weird. He's one of his last MVP season. It was completely clear all season, right? This season, I still think Christian McCaffrey's the MVP. I know
Yeah,
they're going to give it to Lamar because it's pretty
yeah.
much a quarterback-driven award. It's also a narrative award. He's the quarterback of the best team in the entire league, the number 1 seed AFC, best record, all that stuff. I just his stats aren't that great. It tells me that he was not the one that carried the team, so to speak. So but they're going to give it to him.
Mhm.
I do think that Christian McCaffrey should be the MVP. I think this is the year to give it to a non-quarterback.
Right.
If there was ever a year, but yeah, it's going to be Lamar.
Mike Vrabel for MVP.
That's my buddy
I
Chase. He's a huge Titans fan. He's feeling it a little bit today.
yeah. Vrabel to the Patriots nearly confirmed. That's where I feel things
Why
are
did
going
they
to go.
trade him though? Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking there, but I was with you until a couple of weeks ago. Christian McCaffrey was my MVP pick, and I really thought he absolutely deserved it. And with a lot of the quarterbacks having down years and nobody was really standing out, I'm with you. It should have been him the whole way, but you nailed it right on the head. It is a narrative-driven league. Lamar Jackson and his team, it wasn't
Yeah,
just him, but they dominated the 49ers and then they dominated the Dolphins. And at that point, things were locked up for Lamar Jackson. He will be your MVP. But it would have been interesting to finally get it away from a
I
quarterback this year. It was built perfectly for it to finally happen.
I
And it
wish
didn't go that
Tyreek
way.
didn't get hurt. I honestly do. I think regardless of the Dolphins team, I think Tyreek breaks that 2,000 yards.
Mhm.
He gets the MVP. So
I go through some of the NFL news. Black Monday happened, though it was pretty quiet. Arthur Smith was let go. Nobody was shocked
Shocker.
there. Ron Rivera was let go. We all knew that
Shocker.
was coming at the beginning of the year with the new
The
ownership.
surprising thing about that is they're actually talking about interviewing people for coaching instead of just promoting EB. I don't get why this guy. The offense was not that bad this season with him under the helm as the
Not
offensive
with the
coordinator.
pieces that they had.
Yeah, compare. I mean, guy went from Mahomes to Howell. Like,
Right.
I just can't
But
believe he's going to get passed up again.
But Bieniemy, for those that don't know the initials you were bringing up, Eric Bieniemy was interviewed the last several years for head coaching jobs, and for whatever reason, he just I've heard he does not interview well. I don't know what that means. The interview process should be what he's been able to do with the people on the field. However, there are just different personality types that
Yeah,
work really well as a head coach, and they don't work, or excuse me, they work well as a coordinator, but they don't work as a head coach. We see it all the time where uh, somebody gets to be a head coach and then they have a horrible year and then, oh, he can't coach. Well, then he gets hired as an offensive coordinator, a defensive
yeah.
coordinator, and completely dominates that side of the ball. It just works really well for them. And I think maybe for Eric Bieniemy, he is just a really good coordinator, and owners don't think that he has that leadership capability. Obviously, I've never met the man. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what he does behind the scenes. I know he is a lot more strict, and I do think that that was a big reason why Kansas City was a lot more lackadaisical this year, is because
Yes.
they used to have good coach, bad coach, and they got rid of bad coach as far as like really keeping players accountable. And then Andy Reid kind of
Yeah,
was a
but
lot
then
more lax.
yeah, but then I mean, Josh McDaniels keep getting coaching gigs. That's
I
what I
don't
don't.
get it.
I just it's the weirdest
He had
thing, man. Just
to
give the guy a
finally ran.
chance. If he
Yeah,
fails, cool. At least we know.
he has at least ran out of chances. I think
Oh,
Mike McDaniel's
100%.
or Josh McDaniel's chances are finally
Well, we'll
gone.
see.
Mike Vrabel, as we talked about, did get fired
That
today
was
from the Tennessee
surprising.
Titans. I did not see that one coming. He was
Yeah,
6-18 in his last 24 games. So,
but look at the
but
injuries the man with.
the Titans were going off. And honestly, I think Vrabel might have asked out because it does look like Derrick Henry will now be done with the Titans. And
Yep.
who really wants to coach that team without Derrick Henry leading the way there?
I'm
So
a big Vrabel
this
guy.
honestly feels way more of a Mike Vrabel asking, "Hey, can you please let me go?" than the Titans
Yeah.
just being done with him.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be the only thing I can think of, considering the fact that they didn't even try to trade him. I mean, we just saw what the Saints got for Sean Payton, right? Um,
Mhm,
so because Vrabel's like really, really good coach I think he's a really great coach. I think
mhm.
he's smart. He knows what he's really good when it comes to situations. He's a really great situational coach. I'm very surprised that they just fired him outright. Like you said, he probably asked, "Hey, just fire or
Mhm.
whatever." Um, I think he's going to New England. I
Yeah,
think
me
he's
too.
going back home. I think that's going to be great for New England. It's going to suck for Tennessee, depending on who they hire to replace him. But
Mhm.
I mean, the guy got to the AFC Championship with Ryan Tannehill. So I mean,
Right. So
it's
let's take. I mean, obviously they still have Belichick, so New England's still not even a open position at the moment. Though we do think that they
yeah, I think so.
plan on moving on from Bill Belichick. What is the job that is open at the moment that a John Harbaugh will say, or one of these top coaches, or hopefully Eric
Chargers,
Bieniemy throws in there? You think the Chargers are the
Chargers.
most interesting and the best place to go?
Yep. Yeah, Jim Harbaugh's going to the Chargers. If he goes to the NFL, he's going to the Chargers. Um, just because he's got Herbert. He doesn't have to build like he doesn't have to go find his quarterback that he needs. He's got Herbert. Sure, they're going to be in a little bit of a cap situation with some of their top stars, what they're
Mhm.
paying. But I give him a couple years. I think he goes to LA. I really do.
That I mean, the Chargers is a really good fit. I want to see a really good coach. Like, can we get Eric Bieniemy in Atlanta, please,
Yeah,
with their offensive
absolutely.
weapons and what he can do? I think he could make them the best of the NFC South instantly. Yeah,
I
if Bieniemy
yeah,
could go there.
I would say get him as far away from the dumpster fire that is Washington as
Mhm,
possible, except for the fact they just hired Bob Myers from the Golden State Warriors, who's one of the smartest minds in sports, and I think that's probably the best hire that I've seen in years from any NFL team, and I think it's going to be great. But yeah, just get him in Atlanta, get him his own team.
I also think Washington is kind of waiting to see things because I've heard ties of Harbaugh with the Washington area. Obviously, Bill Belichick could possibly be somebody that could go to
Oh,
Washington as well with that new ownership. Obviously, with Bill Belichick being 14 wins away from passing John Shula, I don't think any of us believe he's done as a head coach, but he probably should be done with New England. So where does Bill
he,
Belichick go?
I think Belichick needs to retire. I his mind, he's too old school to adapt. I mean, because wherever he goes, he wants to be the guy. He wants to be the GM. He wants to be the coach.
Mhm.
Everything. That's
But he
just
is he did say in his exit interview that or press conference that he would be up for those kind of changes.
uh, he says so. We'll see.
That's
I don't
also
think.
true.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's just, hey, you know what, man? Retire, be done with it. Unless you want to really try to go in and prove this whole I could win without Brady thing. I I I I think he could because I think the drop off from Brady to Mac and everything was so vast.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know. I don't think the guy has anything to prove personally. He's
No.
one of the greatest coaches of all time. Yeah, his accolades, his record proves it. So, my buddy Chase just said Nashville screaming for Bobby Slowick. If Houston lets that man leave, they are stupid
Yeah,
because that
can't
guy's
disagree.
just as important to the team as CJ Stroud is.
Can't disagree there. Real quick before we move on to other sports, Derrick Henry looks like he's done with Tennessee. Where would be the best fit for him next year?
Mhm. I hate to say this, but Pollard didn't really look that good this year.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think Dallas would have no problem throwing money at
Uh-huh.
Henry.
That's the
That might
shitty. Yep.
Derrick Henry to Kansas City.
We got Pacheco, man. We're good.
No, it's honestly, I mean, Chicago has a lot of interesting players. Some of them have not gone as well as I
Depends
would
on who
have
they draft.
liked. Yeah,
Yeah.
also who they draft there too. But if they do decide to go with a Caleb Williams with their first pick, trying to get a Derrick Henry to be his bell cow would not be the worst
Yeah.
idea. And I like some of the other pieces around the Bears. Again, they have some young running backs, but Deontay Foreman really did not have a fantastic year, and Khalil Herbert really struggled as well. So they could use a Henry. And then finally, I'll get a little homerism in here since we just spent an hour talking about teams that matter. Um, again, anybody that watches the show know that the two main sporting shows that I watch religiously is First Things First because they are just hilarious to me, and the Rich Eisen show. And Rich Eisen is
Love Rich Eisen.
I
Love that guy.
love his narratives. Also, he's a big Jets fan, so I feel his pain when he goes on his monologues. But they brought up the news that Garrett Wilson is changing his jersey number next year from 17 to 5. Is this because the Jets are going to go all in and try to trade for Devontae Adams in the offseason? Or is it because, as Garrett Wilson said, that was his number in college and he wanted the number back?
You'd be better off trying to get Justin Jefferson. I mean,
But Aaron Rodgers probably doesn't like Justin Jefferson.
yeah. Well, Devontae
And it's
Adams,
all about the people that Aaron Rodgers likes, sir.
he's already
So he can
getting to
play
his
for
age.
5
He's getting to that
snaps.
age, man. I'm surprised he's produced so well in the Raiders. He's been really good considering his age for a wide receiver. I, I mean, like you said with Rodgers, I wouldn't be surprised. It could
I'm
happen.
not saying it's the better move. Justin Jefferson is the better move. And
Yeah,
look at the two wide receivers the Jets did bring in to help with Rodgers coming in. Rodgers goes out in 5 snaps. Randall Cobb, I think, had 3 catches all year. And Lazard was horrible. Lazard looked like he was playing for the Chiefs with how many drop passes he had. You say ouch.
I mean it's fair,
It's
but
true.
that's fair. Hey, throw this at you though: 40 plus drops by wide receivers this year. Those are eliminated. The MVP discussion is completely different.
Probably.
Yeah,
I mean, because Mahomes had good numbers, and obviously we hold him to a higher standard. And
that
there was a
it's the
lot of
LeBron
drop
effect right
passes
now.
around.
It's LeBron effect. So
And you can tell that it is getting to Mahomes. He was very frustrated at the end of the year, but the playoffs
as he
change
should be.
things. Playoffs change things. All right, let's move on. We'll talk about some other stuff real quick. Major League Baseball once again had some more maneuvering as they get closer and closer to spring training. The Los Angeles Dodgers apparently still have money as they signed Teoscar Hernandez to a 1-year, $23.5 million contract. I want to say 9 million of that, or I forget the exact number now. But a good chunk of this contract is also going to be deferred, as Shohei Ohtani's contract was. So a lot of that money will not even be paid till 2030. The Dodgers are just laughing at this loophole that they have found in the rules, which will be changed come the next time that Major League Baseball gets together and makes all the rule changes, which usually is in the spring.
Wait,
But boy, are the
they're going to
Dodgers
change a
going nuts.
rule? Wait, it's Buffalo? Buffalo doesn't have a team in baseball, do they?
Yeah.
So,
Sean Manaea signs with the Mets. That's fine. He was an okay pitcher for the horrible Oakland Athletics. 3 people watched him play. I mean, you want to talk about a fan base that never shows up. That's the Oakland Athletics. And that's why they're going to Las Vegas.
Yeah, I was going to say the Las Vegas Athletics, if they still keep the team name.
It'd probably be A's, just so they can make it look like the card, would be my guess. Seattle made some big moves this last week for those that are big Mariner fans in the area. They had Robbie Ray. He had to have Tommy John surgery after a one rough year with the Mariners. He was decent, but not great. And then has Tommy John surgery very early on in the season last year. So they trade him to Seattle and to San Francisco, excuse me, as they get Mitch Haniger back. And they also get former Giants and Reds pitcher Anthony Desclafani. He's an okay pitcher. He'll probably be number 4 or 5 in their rotation. But it's always good to have more arms as every team in Major League Baseball has shown. They fall off quickly. And if you don't have backups, it can implode really quick. They also get Luke Raley from Tampa Bay. So Jose Caballero is going to be an absolute stud for Eric's Rays because that's what Tampa Bay does. They trade for no-name players and they turn them into all-stars. Then they trade them off for no-name players and they turn those players into all-stars. And they continue to only have like $50 million of salary, and they're still one of the best teams in the American League. It's just what Tampa Bay does. Their ownership is insanely good. I forget, you're an Angels fan, right?
No, I grew up a Mariners fan. I just haven't watched baseball in so long. Yeah, like last time I really watched baseball was the Fab Five of like Griffey, Cora, Jay Buhner, Edgar Martinez.
Back in the 90s.
Alex Rodriguez.
I think I maybe just assumed it was the Angels fan because you're always so pro Ohtani against Aaron Judge. But
because I think he's the greatest baseball player of all time at this point.
He's insane. He's so
ridiculous.
Fun to watch. I'm so glad he moved to the National League. Let's just be honest. Kind of sports news that we'll hit on real quick before I hit the local stuff, and then Robert and I are going to geek out about wrestling the rest of the show, just as a heads up. But
as soon as I get back from a quick pee break, I'll be right back.
Before you go, real quick.
Oh yeah,
I'll let you go on your pee break for the local stuff, but I just want to get your quick take on Tiger and Nike ending their 27-year relationship. Is that news to you?
I don't think it's so much news. It just depends on what happens afterwards. I got to see the next step. I think it's really weird, but I mean, Nike's been taking a lot of like PR hits.
Yeah.
Lately. So
they took a lot of PR hits for Tiger Woods.
Yeah, true. But in terms of Nike themselves, I mean, I don't know. I'm curious to see what Tiger does next. I think that's going to be the main thing. I mean, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he signs with Logan Paul. That's what seems to be what everybody's doing nowadays. But yeah, I mean, is he live? Is he going? But
no,
I don't know. It's interesting. I'm surprised after that long of a relationship.
I can't do live either. I was just shocked by the news because I really thought it was going to be handed down from Tiger Woods to his son. We see Charlie on those father-son tournaments all the time, and it just really felt like all the coverage they were getting. It was going to be this great Nike ad for a year of like generations have been fans of Nike shoes and all these stuff. And now generations are getting passed here with Tiger and Charlie and all that stuff. So
Yeah,
I
it's
think
like
it was
one
a
of
missed
those end
opportunity
of
for
the
Nike.
era.
Right.
As WWE always tried to put it, end of an era. No, this is actually a true end of an era.
Right,
So,
for sure. All right,
so
you go into the restroom. I'll get some local
I'll be right
stuff
back.
here out of the way since he's Taylor over there in California doesn't know any of this stuff, anyways. But LC had some basketball games over the weekend. The women's team still top 10 in the country, come away with 2 wins, 86-73 over Eastern Oregon, one of their big rivals. That was a big game for the Warriors. And then they took care of College of Idaho 61-42. The women are now 11-2 on the year. They're 7-1 in Cascade Conference play. Ellie Sander is your Cascade Conference Women's Basketball Athlete of the Week for her performances over the weekend. So congratulations to her. She had like 26 points, I want to say, against Eastern Oregon. Her offensive output's been phenomenal. The men went 1-1 over a difficult weekend as they are now 9-5 on the year, 7-1 in conference play. They had a ridiculous game against Eastern Oregon on Friday. I was able to listen to Brian Danner have that call on Friday afternoon. The Warriors were down by 8 points with 70 seconds to go in that game. Came back to tie it before the end of regulation, and the Warriors get the 77-75 win in overtime. And then the next day, after that wild victory, they took on the defending NAIA men's basketball champions in College of Idaho, who are ranked 5th right now. And the Warriors unable to get the win there. They lost 81-71, but still 7-1 in conference play. Men are doing just fine. They will be back at home, their first home games in 2024. The Warriors will host Southern Oregon on Friday. Women will be at 5 p.m. and Southern Oregon is ranked 20th. So 2 top 25 teams on Friday, and the men will start at 7. And then at Saturday, the women will start at 4. And then the men, taking on the number 24 team in the country, will take on Oregon Tech at 6 p.m. over at the P1FCU Activity Center. High school sports, Lewiston got a couple of wins against Moscow yesterday. I had the calls for both. Girls won 49-44. Reese DeGroot led the way with 16 points. Addie McArcher had 13. And then after a loss to Post Falls back on Saturday, girls now 7-10 on the year. The boys snapped a 5-game winning streak against Post Falls on Friday, just could not get their offense going, lost 64-50. Drew Hottinger scored 19 points in that game. Jordan Bramlett was 16. But a big win last night against the Bears, 74-48. Jordan Bramlett with 19 points. Rylan Gomez with 16 there. The boys will be in action this Friday at 7 p.m. I'll have the call for you on the River 105.1 and bingosports.com. That game is on Friday at 7 p.m. And then both teams will go on the road against Coeur d'Alene on Tuesday. Robert's not here to talk about his Clarkston Bantams, but the girls remained undefeated. They are 10-0 on the year as they beat Mount Spokane 71-45 earlier this week, and they took care of business against West Valley, concluding not too long ago. The girls won 81-36 today. Ella Levitt had 18 points off the bench. Kendall Wallace had 17. So the girls now 11-0 on the year. They'll take on Rogers on Friday at home, and then they'll be on the road. Yeah.
Wow. That's
and
impressive.
Then a week from today, they will be on the road against Pullman. Yeah. I talked about it last week with Eric. The Clarkston girls were at the Avista tournament just at the end of the calendar year. And their first 2 games in the tournament, I'm going, why is everyone talking about how good this team is? They were barely winning their games. Then they got to the championship game and won by 40. And I'm like, oh, this is the Clarkston team everyone is talking about. So Clarkston
that's
girls
impressive, dude. That's actually
really
that's
good.
impressive. That's a beatdown.
The boys for Clarkston right now, they are 6-4 on the year. They are getting ready to open up their GSL action as they just started their game against West Valley. That started about 45 minutes ago. And then I want to just bring up a couple of numbers, just because I always like to do this when we get somebody who's not from the area on the show. And we have a small school in the area, the Lapway Wildcats. Smallest school, one of the smallest schools in the state of Idaho. They play in the second to last as far as levels go in the state of Idaho, and they're the best team in Idaho. Case Wynot, who is about to set the Idaho school or boys school record for most points in a career in high school, has just been phenomenal. And they have had 2 games over this last week. And I don't know individual stats. I forgot to look these up because I wasn't going to bring it up, but I always like to just get the reaction of people that are not from the area. Lapwai beat Genesee on Friday 103-25.
Make sure that wasn't on mute. Okay. Yeah, that's
pretty
demoralizing
just
for the other team.
Yeah, just absolutely crushed them. And then was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday, Lapwai hits triple digits again. They beat Logos 100-74. That game had to have been impressive. 174 points in a high school game.
Yeah, that's a little more respectable for the other team, but oh my
that's true.
God, that's good. That's a lot of good. That's a lot of great offense for a high school team. Wow.
Yeah. Zach Eastman and what he's done with the Lapwai Wildcats is always phenomenal. So always been keeping a track on them. I think Case Wynot's now within 150 points. Maybe it's down to 100 points now. Like I said, I didn't see his point totals these last couple of games, but he is inching closer and closer to the state record for most points in a high school career. So congratulations to him. He's a full ride commit to Utah State next year. So pretty cool for a small town kid here in Idaho. All right. That's it for the normal sports talk. So if you are not a wrestling fan, I will just say this. We will be back on Tuesday at 6 p.m. for a normal show. I still don't know who my guest is going to be. Robert Hagan still has basketball commitments for the next 2 weeks. But we'll have somebody on. We'll talk about the wild card weekend, get you ready for the divisional round, talk whatever other sports that those people want to talk about.
If the Chiefs win, I'm available.
All right. If the Chiefs win, we might have Robert on. we won't ask Robert to be on if the Chiefs lose and he's going to come on crying. So that's fair. So somebody will be on. I have not asked around yet, but Robert Taylor, I will accept that invitation. I've had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Nerd time is about to start for these next 10, 15 minutes or so, because Robert and I really have not talked wrestling in person in a very long time. He got to go to WrestleMania last year. I'm still jealous about that. It's
fun.
21 years since I've been got to go to WrestleMania. However, I did get to go to the last great NXT takeover, so I will still put that hat on. NXT Portland, baby. That show.
That was a great show.
It was so good. And then the pandemic happened and takeovers disappeared. That's why I say it was the last great takeover, because it was the last takeover in front of people. However, the Royal Rumble's coming up. What is it? 2 weeks from Saturday?
Yeah, it's coming.
So I'll just ask you real quick, because I saw a comment from you. The Rock is back.
Ugh.
Your thoughts on his return?
I don't care. I'm so over The Rock. So I've always maintained that I don't think The Rock's that good, and he never has been that good. He's great on the mic, sure, but he's never been that great on the mic. He's just charismatic, and he pops you, which is all you need to be. But the substance is not there. He's more sizzled than steak, I guess. I don't know.
That's fair.
I'm not interested in seeing. I don't know the story. I guess the story dictates that. Yeah, he's the last final, head of the table, whatever combatant. But I hope they do it at Elimination Chamber and not at WrestleMania. That's just what
At first, I didn't believe that was even possible, but again, with Elimination Chamber being in Australia this year and them trying to make it a big thing, I can see that. And honestly, with the way the WWE under Triple H has looked at their PLEs, their premium live events now,
so good.
It's no longer the big four and everything else. Like, the other events are getting sent to these places that make it feel like a WrestleMania. Like, yes, the Saudi money that they were getting over the years to go over there always looked bad, and for the most part, those crowds were never great as far as like getting into the action, though they have turned around. Some of the PLEs over in Saudi have turned into some pretty good crowds and some good shows. They're no longer the house show feel that we were getting for the first couple, but they go to Puerto Rico last year. That show was insane. That crowd was one of the best crowds of the year. Obviously, anytime they go to Canada, it works really good. That's where they went back in February last year, and they're going again for Money in the Bank this year. They went to England.
Remember when we were growing up, dude? Like the in your house.
Yeah.
They all were special. They had special stuff on them. I mean, like you had like the Canadian Stampede in your house. You had all these every pay-per-view was special. And over the years, they were all made to not matter as much, except for the big four, and that's where Triple H is just changing everything, and he's bringing it back to where everything matters.
I'll push back on that point a little bit. The first few In Your Houses were just generic whatevers, and because they were built that way, they were 2-hour shows, and they were half the price, and then they started getting into the other stuff, and that's when Vince realized, hey, people are just going to keep buying pay-per-views every month. So then the In Your House moniker went away, and then just the weird names came in. But it's really been Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. And then Survivor Series kind of fell off there for a while. Now we get War Games at least, so at least it's something.
Yeah.
But no, just them putting these shows in big places just really makes every event special. So yeah, The Rock at Elimination Chamber instead of WrestleMania could possibly make sense, but there is no bigger money match that the WWE could put on at WrestleMania than Roman Reigns and The Rock. Right? No discredit to Cody Rhodes and what he's been able to do and him trying to finish his story. His story can wait. The money is in The Rock being at the main event of WrestleMania.
I may be crazy here, but I think that there's a chance that if it's Rock versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, there's a chance that Roman is the face to the crowd.
That's possible too.
I think this is there could be like not on the level of Hogan and Rock, but I think that people are going to see right through it. They're going to see right through it. Kind of like the Batista turn too. That's the same thing. I think they're going to see right through it.
But honestly, I think
that would be awesome to see.
That's what I want. I think secretly the WWE wants, because all the rumors and the belief and the people that are trying to fantasy book a lot of this stuff really believe that whenever Reigns finally loses his title, which I don't dislike his title reign. I think it's awesome.
I think it's different. It's great. I love it.
And they created the other belt, so we still have title matches and stuff.
See, we're gamers. That's why this is the final boss.
Yeah,
he is. It's.
If you don't think Roman Reigns is the final boss, don't listen. Just go listen to his entrance theme. That's final boss music.
It's the best, man. I think it's great. I think his whole aura is great.
Right, but I believe the one idea I've heard that I have totally sold in on is whenever he loses the title, whether it's this WrestleMania or this upcoming SummerSlam or next year's WrestleMania or whenever it is, that Reigns will then get turned on by whatever his group looks like at that time. Obviously, it's kind of ebbed and flowed with the Usos and Solo, and we'll see if some of the other younger talent that was wrestling in Mexico at that point are able to join his faction by that point. But I think his faction turns on him for losing the belt. He goes away for a while, and then when he comes back, he's going to be the biggest babyface in the whole company, which is what they were trying to do for so long, is make him the face of the company.
I completely agree, and that's exactly what they should have done, which is they should have done from a long time. Everybody, they saw through the facade a long time ago. They said this guy should be a heel. It just seems forced, and I think that's the problem with today's audience, right? Not the problem. I'm sorry. The problem with the company that today's audience has is when things feel forced, they're going to push against it. They're going to push back. Cody Rhodes does not feel forced,
right?
As this pure, natural, good guy, you could feel it, as I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, he was up in Spokane and promised to be a fan's best man at his wedding. And he came out with a video saying he promises that he will be there for it. So it was really cool. He did ask if they could change the wedding to a weekday. So
Yeah.
to make it easier for him. But yeah, and they're not even forcing Cody Rhodes. I think fans are upset that he's not the champion right now.
Yeah.
And that's just the Triple H booking is so good. Yes, some of their storylines can go on a bit too long. But I think he mixes and matches so much. He actually has me excited to see what Karrion Kross does now that they brought AOP back.
See, that's the crazy thing, man. It's like Triple H's booking reminds me of the old Attitude Era booking without the Attitude Era.
Mhm.
Everybody matters. That's like everybody's
Yeah.
everybody has something. They matter.
At least they're working towards it. There's still people that they're
something.
trying to get in.
Yeah.
But it just shows you, and this is the thing that makes me laugh, is and I'm not an AEW fan. I'll just throw that right out there. So anybody
Neither
that's
am I.
listening to this stuff, yes, I dislike that company and I don't like how they run their company. Tony Khan is a complete joke. And go look at his Twitter today. He's proving our point. However, like
Tried to hinder
people
the
were
gender
trying
and
to go,
did not happen.
AEW is going to go completely bonkers because look at all the people leaving WWE to go to AEW. Well, they all left because they loved what they were doing with Triple H at NXT. They got called up, got completely misused by Vince, and went, "Screw this, I'm out."
Yep.
Now Triple H is running the show, and now all of a sudden they're trickling back. First it was Cody, who started AEW. Now Andrade is rumored to get ready to return to WWE. CM Punk came back, and he hated Triple H. There are rumors that Miro wants out, and he would love to come back to WWE because Rusev was so good. I really liked Keith Lee when he was in NXT. I know he's had a lot of health stuff go on, and he's really struggled
unfortunately. Yeah,
over there. But that's the thing, is there's so many people that left because of Vince. Now Vince is gone. They would like to come back to the better company. That's not me saying I want AEW gone. Competition is
option.
good.
Yeah.
And I want them to be there, even though I cannot stand the product that they put on the screens. But I do think without them, then WWE would continue to make the same mistakes they did. It's because there's competition that they're doing just so much better stuff.
I mean, you just think about it, man. Like a wrestler coming up in the business is not like, oh man, I hope I get to go to like the second best company.
Right.
Like they want to be WWE. That's just it is what it is. That's what everybody's goal is.
So real quick before we call it a night, I need your Royal Rumble predictions. I think one is obvious, and then one is rough. I don't know who's winning the women's yet, off the top of my head.
Shit, I just drew a blank on her name. Why did I draw a blank on her name? We were just talking about AEW. I think she's gonna win it.
Somebody from AEW?
Yeah, who's in WWE now. She signed. I think she's gonna win it.
Jade Cargill?
Jade Cargill is my pick. I think she's gonna be the winner. She's gonna be surprised and all that. I think she's gonna be the winner. But also Bailey, which would be great after they turn on her, or they turn on her afterwards, and then she faces Io Sky. For the men's, I think it's predictable, but I think it's part of what they're building to, right? I think it is CM Punk. Right. He's going to challenge Seth Rollins.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think if Cody does face Roman at WrestleMania, he will win at Chamber.
Yeah.
To earn that title shot. So then there is a question if it is Rock and Roman there. And then if not, then there's different ways. Somebody can screw Cody out of something to make sure he doesn't get it. I still love the idea of Cody versus Orton at Mania instead of Reigns. Yes, everyone wants him to win the title. But I think that match has a fantastic story.
He's losing it for another year.
Me neither. I don't think, and that's why I don't want to see Cody versus Reigns, because I don't think Reigns is losing it, because he's getting too close to Hogan now for moving into second.
They're not going to miss that opportunity because it will never happen again.
Yeah. So, and honestly, the way the card is shaping up for WrestleMania, like I know you went to a pretty good one, especially day one for WrestleMania 39 was top notch. As long as we forget about the things with The Miz
and Shane. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. But they had a fantastic card at 39. I think this one is shaping up to blow it out of the water. If The Rock and Reigns ends up being a WrestleMania match,
Yeah.
Punk and Rollins would be phenomenal. I love the idea of Orton versus Cody. We're
Same.
already basically set for the Usos to go ahead one-on-one against
Yep.
each other. That is going to be great. They're actually building a tag team division. There are so many different tag teams are getting set up. I've made the joke that I don't want it to happen because there's too many titles in wrestling to begin with. But there are so many 3-person factions all of a sudden that they could make a trios title in WWE if they wanted. But they have so many options there. You still have Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. What are they going to do at Mania?
What do you do with Gunther?
Brock Lesnar.
For the Intercontinental Championship? I'm so down. I mean, obviously, Brock, as long as he does the honors, which I think he will. But, God, that's the call. That would be amazing. That would
it's
solidify
either
Gunther.
For the Intercontinental title or they do it where, well, it doesn't work now that I think about it. Because they sometimes switch, which if it's the men's rumble or the women's rumble.
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking men's rumble, Brock Lesnar is a surprise entrant. Gunther eliminates him. Gunther then has an Intercontinental title match later that night. Brock Lesnar,
or even have Chamber do it, and Brock cost him.
And he cost him the Intercontinental title, and then because that does not need to have the belt. We all would wish, but I think the Gable's train has left, sadly. But he's
sadly.
Good. But yeah, I don't even know who's going to win the women's rumble, and it's kind of exciting. I'm with you with Bailey, but yeah. But anyways, we've hit 8:00. It's been a lot of fun finally getting you on the show, and I think it went really well. I had a lot of fun. So maybe we'll get you back on next week if the Chiefs win.
We'll see what happens.
Feel better, but there you go. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. It was another really fun 2-hour show. It'll be me and somebody next week. Talk Super Wild Card Weekend and so much more. But that's Robert Taylor. I'm Randy. This is the R&R Sports Report. And until next Tuesday, we are
the better at R&R.